with us tonight. We're going to stay till 9 o'clock. I just ask anyone planning to speak to be mindful of what they're saying and be respectful of everyone else's time. And our goal is to get through everything we can tonight. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order and move to approval of minutes from January 6th meeting. Is there any comments, questions, concerns, changes, amendments? Motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into item number 3, our treasurer's report.
You should have been emailed the financial reports, and there are no bills to approve for payment this month.
Any questions for Kim or possible motion?
I'll make a motion to approve financials as read.
We have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into new business. Item number 4, to invite the public to be heard for any item not on our agenda tonight. If there's anyone that'd like to speak for anything not on our agenda. Okay? Yes, sir. Everyone.
Yeah, so we have a microphone to the left. Again, we apologize for the lack of mics tonight. We're making do as best we can without IT staff here at the school. So it was a snow day or NTI day today, so we're making do.
Excuse me, with all the new housing that's going in on Boonesboro Road, what consideration has been done to about the traffic flow?
Sir, that's a public hearing B, so if you could save your comments to then, we'll let you get up then and come up and speak when we talk about that item.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anything not on our agenda tonight? Okay. We'll move into first public hearing A, reviewing a zone map amendment proposing to rezone the 407-acre property located at 1675 Van Meter Road from agriculture to planned development. Before we move in, I guess we need a motion to remove it from the table. Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to remove it from the table from last meeting and place it back on the agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove from the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. I'll turn it over to Rob for the staff report.
All right, so this item was on the agenda last month. It was to review the zone map amendment for 1675 Van Meter Road, the total of 407 acres. What was reviewed last month was a request to rezone it to planned development, or PD. So the applicant submitted a zoning map amendment application to rezone the 407 acres currently zoned agriculture, again located at 1675 Van Meter Road, from A1 to PD. The applicant narrative and property deed containing the legal description are attached. The property is shown on the future land use map as being anticipated for planned community neighborhood. That land description is included in the staff report, and basically there is no zoning district that has been identified or called out for planned community neighborhood. But what it does say in the comprehensive plan, that anything that's rezoned that has been identified to planned community neighborhood in the comprehensive plan, then planned development would be the zoning district that would be more in line with that land use designation. And so that's what the applicant has decided to do, is to go for the PD zoning district. In the staff report, we have KRS Chapter 100.213. Those are findings necessary for proposed map amendments. And so some of the things the Planning Commission needs to look for is spelled out in this article. And so before a Planning Commission before a map amendment is granted, the Planning Commission or the legislative body or fiscal court must find that the map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan, or in the absence of such finding, that one or more of the following apply, and such findings shall be recorded in the minutes and records of the Planning Commission or legislative body. And so one of those would be that the existing zoning classification given to the property is inappropriate, or that the property proposed, or that proposed zoning classification is appropriate. That there have been major changes or of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved, which are not anticipated in the adopted comprehensive plan, and which have substantially altered the basic character of such area. Also in the staff report is KRS Chapter 100.275, going over the subdivision plats and development plans and some of the recent changes made to that. You know, with the map request, the zone map request, they've submitted a development plan. That's one of the main reasons why the application was tabled. And so I'll pull up that development plan on the screen. It's also in your staff reports for review. Bear with me here a moment. There we go. So in this development plan, they've spelled out the different areas or color category, the different areas, which we plan for different uses. In our PD zoning district, you can have a mixture of commercial, residential, even some light industrial. And so if you look on the development plan, the different areas that have been designated for each, that purple, that kind of pinkish purple area, that has been identified for I1, so light industrial. And then the darker purple areas are for your your R4 use. And then the light kind of peach color, they have identified for single family R1D. And then there's the larger, I guess another shade of purple in the rear of the building, or the rear of the property would be your R1C designation. And then the applicant has their attorney here, legal counsel, to speak on behalf of the applicant, if we have any other additional questions for them.
Our map is turned the other way.
So,
Where is Rolling Hills? We can't see it.
all right, so Rolling Hills would be in this direction right here. So this is Van Meter Road. Oh my goodness. So Van Meter Road runs along here. We have WMU on this side and the soccer complex as well,
Right.
further. So if you're heading to Rolling Hills, you're heading in this direction.
And where was the residential?
So we have, this is your R1D single family, your R1C single family, and I guess on the screen it looks more of a gray color. That's your multifamily, your R4. And then this color, whatever you want to call it, purplish pink, is what they've identified for I1, or light industrial.
That would be light industrial right there. Just put-
Exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions for Rob? Okay, Brian, you will come up.
I didn't mean to be presumptuous, Mr. Chair. I was just trying to, I know you got a time limit. We appreciate you all tabling this to allow a development plan to come together. This is a development plan, and as we stated last time, and I will just, everything that I said last time, I would just like to be incorporated into the record for this one. But what we're looking at is plan development. This has been plan development for 30 years. We have some larger areas, some larger lots here, closer to the beginning of Van Meter. Then as we move down, the density gets a little more, and then at the end, we've got this light industrial because it is close to WMU's plant, so it'll be closest to the wastewater plant as far as trying to figure out sewer to manufacture, or that's manufacturing to get that sewage and water waste out of that. So I think we followed all the plans that we've got. We've identified the entrances to the various different areas, and I think there are 4 along Van Meter Road. I know that a question came up last time by a gentleman about what about the traffic. Well, this is a state road, and this is a preliminary development plan. So as you all know, before anything can come to pass, we would have to present a final development plan for any particular portion that gets done. And then that issue, as you all know from your December hearing, there'll be traffic studies that can be ordered. We would get permission from the state, we would get approval from the state. But this has been planned development for the last 30 years. And we would just ask that all we're trying to do is bring that to fruition. We do have the engineer, the owner, and Mr. Thompson, who's been in development since the 70s, helped us to kind of lay out this plan. If you all have any questions specifically about the manner in which this is laid out.
Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
This time we'll open the floor to public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against this item?
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I'll try to keep this very brief. My name is Will Mayer. I'm the Executive Director of Clark Coalition. Clark Coalition's mission is to advance smart growth, sustainable economic development, and government transparency in Winchester, Clark County. I also happen to be a co-owner of the property across Van Road from this development. Very simply, what's been submitted by the applicant concerning 1675 Van Meter Road does not conform to the subdivision regulations or the adopted 2024 comprehensive plan. The subdivisions regulations specify, and this is also referenced from the zoning ordinance, this is Article 4, Section 20, that a preliminary development plan shall include building locations and dimensions, parking lots and sidewalks, easements, including the location, width, and purpose, and utilities, among others. Those are all missing from this submission. It's not in compliance. It's further not in compliance with the comprehensive plan, which is the community's vision for how we want to see this corrected. As you all are well aware, the community spent well over a year, really closer to 2 years, updating this comprehensive plan. Between this update and the previous one, we've spent $100,000 of taxpayer money to craft a plan to say how we want to see this community develop. Contrary, I'll give Rob a pass. I don't think he meant to say that planned community development is meant to include industrial. But one of the basic principles of planning and zoning is to keep separate incompatible uses. Nowhere in the description of planned community development in the comprehensive plan does it contemplate including industrial zone. It talks about having a mixture of different types of densities, and also including things to meet the needs of the day-to-day needs of the residents, including restaurants and convenience stores. That's what's meant by planned community development, including these different type of zoning units. Another problem with this submission is, and this is from the comprehensive plan, is streets. A critical component, I'm quoting, of the development plan will be that the development must be focused on an internal street network and not on the adjacent arterials. What you have here is basically a collection of cul-de-sacs that are minimally connected and direct outflow traffic onto the arterials. The comprehensive plan, another aspect of the comprehensive plan is the use of buffering. Quote, some type of visual or physical landscape buffer needs to be provided along the arterials to complement efforts to maintain the visual, scenic integrity of the arterial corridors. Additionally, a rural transition area must be provided for the portion of the property adjacent to the urban planning boundary by providing an area of large lots in this area or providing common green space for the development along this boundary. This transition is intended to provide a more compatible density to the adjacent agricultural property. In this case, there's over 1,600 linear feet along Van Meter Road that is the urban planning boundary. And there's no mention, there's no indication of any kind of transition area or buffering. And I'll just, I'll touch briefly, and I'm going to submit this for the record so you all can see it as well. But there are a couple aspects of this submission that just don't make good sense from a planning perspective. If you want to have industrial, and I'm not saying that that's appropriate for a planned community neighborhood, but shouldn't it be located adjacent to the existing industrial park with access on rolling hills? What you have on Van Meter, and I don't know, I hope all of you have traveled down Van Meter, whether going to a soccer game or out driving the rural road, there's a very sharp turn immediately underneath a railroad overpass. It's an over 40-degree turn. And so you're talking about directing industrial traffic, semi-trucks, around that turn. The width of the road there is 21 feet. To navigate that turn, a semi-truck has to use the entire roadway. This is a roadway that's used by school buses, by residents, passenger cars, and kids going to soccer. It's simply not a good place to direct industrial traffic. I think in conclusion, this submission not meeting the subdivision regulations, not conforming with the adopted comprehensive plan, and not adhering to the basic principles of good planning and zoning, I would urge you to deny this application at this time and encourage the applicant to resubmit something that conforms to our community's land use regulations. I'm happy to submit this. These are pictures. Also, just further, you'll see in this submission too, there's an example of what planned community neighborhood development plan is supposed to look like. And this is just one example, but it comes from Lexington's Urban Growth Management Plan. And it concentrates the higher density development on a main road, a new road going through the development, and then it's medium density and less density going out from that. So I would encourage you to just encourage the development of the community in accordance with the comprehensive plan. So, thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions for the record. Thank you.
Just let them hold it. Just let them hold the mic.
I think if it's up straight, I think what it is, the weight to the microphone weighs down the pole. So if you hold it up, if it goes up straight, it won't hang back down.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on this item?
I'd just like to rebut just briefly if I could, Mr. Chair.
Once we get done with public comment. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, this time the applicant, sorry.
No, thank
Want to be sure.
I appreciate Mr. Mayor's comments. The only thing I would say is that the Plan Development District, which is a comprehensive plan, and I know that Mr. Mayor's father was actually on the comprehensive plan and voted for the language that's contained in this, says uses permitted, plan development project for residential, professional office, commercial, or light industrial uses. So what you see there is everything that the comprehensive plan says verbatim. I mean, there's residential, there's commercial, there's some light industrial, and as opposed to, well, this is not a good plan. I think all of us really want a plan that looks like Hamburg because it has lots of great access. I mean, it's easy to get around. This is not Lexington. And the fact is that we don't want to be Lexington. And what we're looking at is a plan development district that's been available for 30 years that says this is going to be plan development. We meet all the criteria that's in there. And, we didn't put all the buildings. Well, we're trying to get this thing zoned plan development so that we can market it. And as you all know, before anything's going to be done, we've got to come back to you all. I mean, We had the discussion last time, you all did a plan development before that didn't have anything on it, and you've done that. We have complied with everything that you wanted. We've shown the streets, we've shown the cul-de-sacs, we've shown where the roads are going to be, we showed the elevations, we've shown what planning districts they are, and we believe that it is in conformity, and just ask that this commission would vote to approve it. Thank you.
This time we'll open the floor up to the commission for discussion and motion.
Some clarification for me. What was he quoting? I feel like there's a little bit of a disparity between, he said the full language is here, and then we're hearing language from his report. What language was being quoted there, just so we can kind of
Yeah.
it bounces off each other?
Yeah, so there was two things that were quoted. We had, we had the zoning ordinance that was quoted, the subdivision regulations that was quoted, and also the tidbit of the land use designation description out of the comp plan. And so what I'll start with is a land use description of the comp plan. So this is for the land designation entitled Planned Community Neighborhood. In the second paragraph, it says the Planned Community Neighborhood land use designation does not require the creation of a new zoning district. So that was what I was trying to explain earlier. And I did the gist of that, I feel. And it says all developments proposed for lands within this designation will require rezoning to in compliance with the planned development zone requirements. And so that's what I was trying to say earlier too, is that there's not a district called Planned Community Neighborhood. But if something's been identified for Planned Community Neighborhood, then it needs to meet the requirements for planned development, the planned development district. And so I understand what was said about, whether or not it is or isn't smart to include light industrial in a planned community neighborhood designation. I will say that that second paragraph again states that it was required for it to be rezoned to planned development and meet the requirements for planned development. And what I said earlier was in the planned development district, light industrial is allowed. And so you can take multiple interpretations of this, I feel. I can see where somebody might think, well, we probably shouldn't include light industrial in a planned community neighborhood. But then if it says be rezoned to PD and meet the requirements for PD, light industrial will be permitted in the PD, But it always goes before this body before it's permitted. I totally understand when it comes to traffic. I think there's a lot of older parts of our community who adjoin or abut industrial uses, and unfortunately, a lot of that traffic cuts through their residential neighborhood. So we need to think about if we're going to approve a plan that's going to have light industrial, where is that traffic going to go, and how is it going to affect a single-family neighborhood? And so putting it near or closer to the industrial park is smart. It's smart planning. I'm not going to deny that. I think that was a good comment, and it's something to consider here. The other things that were quoted, we have Article 8.6 development plan out of the zoning ordinance. So it talks about the intent and purpose of a development plan. It doesn't really go into detail as to what is required for a preliminary plan in a zoning ordinance. You have to turn to the subdivision regs for that. And in 420 of the development plan and subdivision regulations, it does have a breakdown of what is required for a preliminary development plan. That was shared with the applicant and their engineer, so that when they were drafting this, that they would have that. There's no doubt in my mind that this area has been identified for planned community neighborhood for the last 30 or more years. It's been in every comprehensive plan that I can find, and is what we use when updating the comprehensive plan in 2018 and in 2024. So if we want to, and I can understand where, developers may not, at this point in time, they're not developing it. There's no plans to develop it, right? Correct at this time. But you want to market it so that you can sell it to a developer. That plan that the developer presents to us will have all those details, right? And it may not look anything like this. So, Bobby, I think we might need to take time to discuss, what is needed at this point in time for the rezoning, knowing that we're going to have more details brought to this body later, right?
Well, I think that depends entirely on how strictly the commission wants to enforce Section 420 of the subregs. Mr. Mayor is correct that it is written very specifically requiring things that, in my personal opinion, are not normally available necessarily at this stage of the proceeding. And tonight's application is a perfect example of that. They're going to market the property They may know the general zoning of the property, they may know the street layouts, but to know, for example, in industrial especially, how could they possibly know whether that will be 10 industrial units or 25? It is not uncommon for subregs to require the kind of specificity that Mr. Mayor is requesting. I don't believe that has been the historic practice of this commission, and to be candid, I don't think it's the historic practice of most commissions, but technically the regulations do require.
So, Mr. Gullett, are you saying that it meets the qualifications at this point?
Well,
Or
then
not?
ultimately, that's your own call. I certainly think more information has been provided tonight than prior applications this commission has considered and approved. And, you know, it's kind of it places the developer in an untenable position. You can't market the property significantly until you have it zoned, and other than going to a horrendous expense and bring in a development plan that met every line, sidewalks, utilities, lot sizes, lot locations, only to then have the new buyer come in with a completely different layout. Obviously, this commission would have to approve it, but there's a balancing act that I can't make. I can tell you that your all's decisions in the past have not required any more information than tonight's applicant is giving you. If you strictly held them to what is in the subdivision regulations, they have not fully complied.
And so with comments that were made tonight about industrial zoning, I mean, I think it's fair, you know, that's
No,
something that we need
I
to.
think that's a fair argument, but I think what Mr. Mayor, this is, you know, the planned development zone is tricky enough for me because you really don't know what it's going to be. It could be a lot of different things. And then when you throw the planned community neighborhood in on top of it, Mr. Mayor is right. A planned community neighborhood is not to include industrial, but a planned community neighborhood is to be within the planned development zone, which is being sought tonight, and it does in fact allow for industrial. So I think their application to that extent is fine. Now, as far as the observation that the industrial might not be in the right place, that's a whole different issue. But as far as it being in a PD zone with a planned community neighborhood, I think that's fine.
Well, like, so if the planning commission wanted to entertain any contingencies tonight, where if in the future, whenever it is ready for development, and somebody proposes a planned development project including these uses, that the light industrial use would be located more towards the rear and have a connection point to Rolling Hills instead of Van Meter. I mean, that could maybe resolve that concern.
Sure.
So on the comprehensive plan, it is designated as planned community neighborhood, right?
Correct.
Which shouldn't have industrial, is that?
So, and then that's, if you read it in our comprehensive plan, it doesn't list industrial. It lists commercial, but it doesn't list industrial. But I think where there's kind of a hang up is the planned development zoning district does, and it says in the comp plan it needs to be rezoned and meet the requirements for a PD zone. And so it's kind of, it's not.
So does that mean we just made a bags?
That means when we're ready to update the comp plan next, we need to tackle that. That we need to clarify that. Yeah. So.
So which is this considered, PD or
Or they're submitting for
planned community neighborhood?
So
yeah,
it's.
but it should be.
It's identified, yes, it's identified for development of planned community neighborhood, which requires it to be rezoned PD.
But wouldn't it have made better sense to do it as PD?
There is no PD land use designation in the comp plan. There's two land use designations in the comp plan that require PD: Planned Community Neighborhood and Planned Interstate Employment Center, I think. And so if you're identified for those two uses, those two land use designations, you're required to rezone it to PD. And
But
so,
the zoning request is from A1 agricultural to PD plan development.
correct.
I mean,
So-
if that changes, then we can't hold them to maintaining planned community
Why is that
neighborhood. Once it's become PD, industrial is allowed, right?
Industrial is allowed, but no, I think if you approve that development plan, they would have to bring changes back for your own approval.
Right, but just knowing in advance that according to the comprehensive plan, we shouldn't have industrial on this land, right, based on the comprehensive plan.
Here, there's
Again.
another.
I see the argument, and, to be honest, I doubt this scenario was ever considered. But the fact of the matter is, the, planned community neighborhood must be in PD property, and PD property clearly authorizes light industrial.
So the code complicates.
It is, it's not unlike a lot of regulations when they hit, the street and are applied to real world situations, they create these kind of issues that, as Rob says, probably needs to be addressed at some time in the future.
But I think there's something to, with our updates that we made in regards to KRS Chapter 100, the development plans are approved by staff. And so in this case, the Planning Commission would approve the rezoning, and if there's any variances with the development plan, the Planning Commission would approve the variances, but then staff would then, sign off. So basically what I'm saying is, if you guys feel like this is proper zoning, and then if you feel like that you need to direct staff not to approve the preliminary plan until they meet all the requirements, then I'll do that. I won't approve the preliminary plan until they meet all the requirements. Is that fair to say, Bobby?
Sure.
I guess my concerns personally are, I wouldn't want to go against the actual comprehensive plan, knowing that it could go against what the community desires.
Right.
So that would be my goal, is to not do that. And if we give them the designation and it can be approved by staff and not come before us, as long as they adhere to plan development, that would be a concern, right?
Yeah, and so as long as it adheres to plan, so that's the thing, if it adheres to plan development. And so adhering to plan development will be a mixture of residential, commercial, and light industrial. I think because it is identified for planned community neighborhood, if the Planning Commission wanted to say, we want to see this as a planned community neighborhood meeting all the developments that's outlined in that description in the 2024 comp plan, is there a way to prevent them from having light industrial, like a binding element saying no light industrial on this PD property?
You mean tonight's applicant?
Yeah.
Certainly, you could ask them if they would concede to waive it, but, the problem is, from the commission's standpoint, is I think we're bound by our regulations, and our regulations, it's kind of a chicken and the egg argument, but our regulations require the planned community development to be in a PD zone, and a PD zone clearly calls for industrial. Now, what the drafters of the original future land use map intended when they said this was going to be a planned community neighborhood, did they envision that? I'm sure they did. But,
No, that's all. That's all. R4 is the kind of gray down here.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just one brief,
Yes, sir.
just briefly. We're jumping through a lot of gymnastics, and you may not like the way it is. My dad said if everybody liked the same things, we'd all be married to the same woman. But the fact is, this is the design that we want. You approved Sam Williams on veterans and didn't have anything. You approved Hagen Codell's and didn't have anything. We tabled this. We agreed to table this, and we have brought you one that is in compliance with what needs to happen for planned development. And all we're asking is, we don't want any special consideration. We want the same consideration that this Planning and Zoning Commission has done for years. And this is more in depth than a lot of what comes on here. A lot of times you just get a drawing on the outside or an aerial photo and something drawn in it. We have been very distinct on how we want that broken down. You know, the traffic issues, that's something that's going to be taken up with the state when it's ready. If you all want to put a provision that says that any development plan won't be approved unless Mr. Jeffries says that it meets the criteria, I'm fine with that. But as far as trying to put some binding enforcement or binding element on there that says you can't have industrial, I don't know if you all know, but the industrial park is running out of space. It's going to go somewhere. And this is right adjacent to it. In fact, here later on, you're going to hear about a piece of property that is in the industrial park that just got zoned from the Hagen Codell that we're asking for a plan development on it. And it was approved with nothing. And you all approved it, and you voted it unanimous, and it passed the fiscal court, and nobody raised a stink about it. And all we're asking for is we provided a whole lot more than that. We meet the criteria for plan development, which is what we've asked to, and we just want this to be approved as presented.
Mr. Gollett, legality purposes, what do you see?
Ma'am, what I see is that the historical perspective tells me that we have never rigidly enforced all the requirements of a development plan.
Preliminary development.
I'm sorry?
Preliminary.
Preliminary development plan. And again, I just don't think all that, while certainly the argument can be made and it is required by the text, I do not believe it's practical in most applications at this stage of development.
Just to confirm one final thing, because I recognize what they argue is that we haven't required it and we should try to be consistent. Is there a way that if this gets zoned as development, right, that it will not come before us at a later date if it appears and staff can approve it?
Well, because it's planned development, it will come before this body. There is no minimum requirement saying that if there was a minimum requirement of front, side, rear setbacks, density requirements, so forth,
Plan
then staff could do
development
it.
lacks the objective standards that other zones do, so 102.75 will bring it still back in.
And that alleviates my concerns. Meaning, if we know it's coming back, this is a preliminary development plan, that's what we require. If it goes to plan development, we can hold it to things, I guess, at a later date.
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, but I feel like you could even require them to bring back another preliminary development plan to this body before they bring back the final. The one that meets the more stringent requirement of the
I
subdivision.
guess you could, but that's probably not practical.
Yeah, just have their final and we go over the final.
What is the pleasure of the commission? Is there a possible motion?
I make a motion to forward a recommendation to the governing body to approve the zone map amendment to rezone the 407 acres located at 1675 Van Meter Road from agricultural A1 to planned development PD, based on the fact that the future land use map found within the Winchester-Clark County Comprehensive Plan anticipates the use of this property as planned community neighborhood and require the rezoning and compliance with the planned development zone requirements.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
I'm going to abstain this one.
You have
Just
that?
no vote.
So we have one abstention.
No, I'm going to just abstain. Can I just not vote?
Yeah, so Bobby can guide you. Like abstaining would mean it goes with the
Go for
majority.
the majority.
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Motion passes. Next, we'll move into public hearing B. I'm going to step down for this one due to being an adjoining property owner, and I'll turn it over to Bill to chair this hearing.
Item B on the agenda is to review the final subdivision plat for Phase 1, Section 1 of the subdivision located at 2070 Boonesboro Road, consisting of 19 single-family lots, amending the 75-foot setback to 25 feet alongside Boonesboro Road. Turn it over to Rob for the staff report.
Yeah. Take the mic. So the applicant for 2070 Boonesboro Road submitted the final subdivision for Phase 1, Section 1, Unit 1, for the subdivision known as Boone Crossing. This phase consists of 19 single-family parcels, and the applicant, as stated earlier, would like to amend the previous approved setback for the parcels fronting along Boonesboro Road from 75 feet to 25 feet. Also in the staff report are your landscaping requirements, and so we just want to make sure that the landscaping requirement was notated on the final plat, and that is that the standard is for 1 tree per 45 feet of street frontage for large trees, 35 feet for medium trees, and 25 feet for small trees. And so that's found in Appendix F of the of the subdivision regulations. And so I just want to make sure that the developer was aware of that, and that that's notated in the final plat before it's recorded, if it is approved tonight. KRS Chapter 100.275, and that's going over the requirements for subdivision plats and development plans. And it's kind of what we spoke about earlier, some of the changes made to KRS. And you'll also find a motion in your staff report, 2 motions, one to approve, one to deny. So depending on what direction the planning commission would like to go, it's some sample language. And then I will pull up
Is the basis for this request a variance?
correct. Well, it's final plat approval and a variance. Because when it was originally.
Does not have to go to the Board of Adjustment?
No, the planning commission has the, if it's associated with the subdivision plan or plat or development plan, then it can come before the planning commission. Any questions or comments for staff?
I'd like to know why the change, so do you want me to ask the developer when they come up?
Yeah, I think the developer can explain why.
Is the attorney for the applicant here?
I am, thank you, Mr.
Thomas?
Clerk. I'm going to have the engineer come up here. This is a little bit different, and I'm going to go ahead and let him explain why specifically we're asking for this 25-foot setback instead of 75 due to its location.
My name's Tom Hatfield. I'm with EA Partners, a civil engineering firm in Lexington. Originally, this property had a 75-foot building line from a former plat. It was used as agricultural. And now that it's a planned development, all of the rest of the building lines within the subdivision will be 25. And we're requesting to reduce the building line on Boonesboro Road, Boonesboro Road down to 25 as well. The actual right-of-way this will be 25 feet from the existing right-of-way. That right-of-way is approximately 100 feet from the edge of pavement of Boonesboro Road. So you're not going to have property sitting right on top of Boonesboro Road. It only affects 2 lots, but you're really going to be setting back 125. So it only affects these 2 lots. Everything else inside the subdivision already has a 25-foot building line. We're talking about the building line along the frontage of Boonesboro Road, and you can see that this is the edge of pavement of Boonesboro Road, and that's approximately 100 feet from the edge of pavement to the right-of-way. And so what we're asking for is to reduce this to 25 feet, which is still going to have a house or a structure. It's still going to be 125 feet off the edge of pavement of Boonesboro.
Did that answer your question, Ms. Bush? So it's not, we're not piling it closer to Boonesboro Road. There's going to be 100 feet. So if you're driving down the road, instead of it being 175 feet, it'll be 125 feet. But it will set itself up so that it'll be in conformity with everything else that's around the development. Is that correct?
And we've looked just real quick at the lots next door on the golf course, and they are also sitting back about 25 feet off of the right-of-way, but they appear to be well off the road, which they are. They're still 125 feet off, but this is very consistent with the property next door.
Is there any questions for the applicant? None. Is there anyone here that would like to speak either for or against this proposal? Anybody here want to speak for or against? See none, then we'll close the hearing to the public and open it up to the commissioners for comment.
Also want to, so an additional, also you'll find in your staff report the kind of breakdown for the cost of development. So this is for the bonding requirement that's in our subdivision regs. And so I just want to make sure, the first motion we need to entertain is for the final plat. And the second motion would be to accept this dollar amount to be bonded or for a letter of credit. And so we've approved either letter of credit or bond. There is one thing I wanted to discuss with the applicant. Our engineer, our planning commission engineer, noticed that there wasn't any breakdown of costs for the sewer for W. I want to make sure, is that going to all be installed at the time? Is it already installed now, or is it near completion? We just want to make sure, because that should be included in this as well.
This project started back in September, and we had hoped to have the sanitary sewers installed by this meeting. Unfortunately, the weather has hit and stopped them, and so the sanitary sewers are not installed at this point. But I think James is saying he wants to have those sanitary sewers installed before we go to reg. So that's why we'd sent you a bond that had the sanitary sewers in it. I sent you a revised one that removed it, and that was the reason. But the weather stopped construction, so he's committed to finishing the sanitary before it goes over.
So as long as the sanitary sewer is installed before it's put to record.
Installed, inspected, and accepted. Yeah.
Installed, inspected, and accepted before the plat's put to record.
Right.
And before we accept the bond.
Right.
Are you good with that?
Any other questions or concerns or possible motions?
Rob, can you verify that Southwind subdivision is the 25?
Yeah, I can pull it up right now. I think I can pull it up right now. As I'm working on this, we can take any other comments from staff or from planning commission.
Commissioners need more discussion or questions? See more comment.
I'm not sure why it's not working.
Can you look at it on your phone?
Well, with Southwind, you've got such an elevation. The elevation,
I just want to be consistent.
right, I mean, because the elevation probably makes it look more so that you've got that. It's set off, that makes sense.
I think I'm going to try the mobile version just because it's on his Wi-Fi and that would work better. No, I'll pull it up. this is 627 right here. And you see the right-of-way lines right here, and then you can barely see it, but that's a 20-foot utility easement along Boonesboro. So that 20-foot utility is a utility and setback easement. And that's, so you have a 25-foot along the rear of these properties. That would be up against the Scobie Estate, which is the 2070. And then you have a 20-foot along Boonesboro.
Section S.
Oh, here, hold on. There is a 25-foot building line
There it is.
right here. Yeah. So, yeah. So the 25-foot building line comes from that line here, which would match with the, as it shows here, 6275 right of way.
So does Southwind have 45 or is it 25?
It says 25. I'll zoom in.
No, I trust you, I can't see
Yeah.
it, so.
So 25 building line from this line here, which is identified as a right of way for 627.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any possible motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the final subdivision plat for Phase 1, Section 1, Unit 1 of the proposed subdivision located at 2070 Boonesboro Road, contingent on landscaping being noted on the plat referencing to adherence with Appendix F of the Winchester-Clark County Subdivision and Development Regulations. Based on the fact that the plat adheres to the subdivision and development regulations, what is being shown is what was approved during the preliminary review of the proposed subdivision.
Motion, is there any seconds?
Mr. Gully, do we need to add the installed, inspected, and accepted, any part in what the gentleman just read?
I think we can entertain a second motion for the bond.
Okay. I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. So we'll get into our second.
And so our subdivision development regulation requires a 10% contingency. So the 690,993. I could have said that better, but that's the total number. The 10% contingency is 69,000, and so the total will be 760,092. That would be the total amount that we would need to entertain for a motion. And like Mr. Gold said, we want to make sure that the sanitary sewer has been installed, inspected, and approved by WMU before the plat is put to record and before the bond is accepted. This isn't something that needs discussion from the public, does it? No. No? All right.
Okay, commissioners, is there any discussion on this proposed contingency bond? Total number is $760,092, is that right?
That's right. You can say it better than I can. This is my Ohio State education. That's what it is.
Can't do it. Any questions from the commissioners or any possible motions?
Make a motion to approve.
And a motion to approve the bond contingency, is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a second from Commissioner Bush.
You want to add the language about that being
We'll add the means installed, inspected, and approved.
Yeah.
Okay, the motion includes installed
Installed, inspected,
and accepted.
Approved for the
Separate.
sanitary sewer.
the sanitary system installed.
Did you get that, Ken?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. At this time, I'll turn the microphone back over to Chairman Stephen Fenn.
Next, we'll move into public hearing C, reviewing a zone map amendment proposing to rezone 2.699 acres of the property located at 4690 Boonesboro Road from agriculture to highway business B3 for the use of a retail sales establishment.
All right, the applicant submitted a zoning map amendment application to rezone 2.699 acres of the 44-acre agricultural zone property. The property is currently used for agricultural purposes. The attached subdivision plat describes the 2.699 acres and is proposed to be subdivided from the parent tract if the rezoning is approved. The development plan is also attached showing the proposed building location, parking, and landscaping. The property is shown on the future land use map as being anticipated for agriculture. The property adjoins, the property adjoining this property is identified for commercial use. And we have that image of that. And so, I can try to zoom in a little bit.
I got better drawings for you. You want to see mine?
All right. So this road right here is Flanagan Station Road. This in the red follows that parcel line, the parcel lines along Flanagan Station. And as best as I can tell, the property is this large green property here that adjoins the property that has been identified for commercial use. And so in the staff report, you'll find the land use designation of commercial in the description. And then you'll also find 100.243, which we've already discussed a little bit tonight, and that's findings necessary for granting. Actually, I apologize. 100.243 is for variances, because something that is also being requested alongside the zone map amendment is a development plan, and they're varying from the parking requirement. But we won't get into. We can get into that here in a minute. I just wanted to finish the thought about rezoning. So what I meant to quote was 100.213, which is also found in your staff report, and those are findings necessary for proposed map amendments, and we already kind of went over that today. And so, before any map amendment is granted, the Planning Commission or legislative body or fiscal court must find that the map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan, or in absence of such finding, that one or more of the following apply. And such findings shall be recorded in the minutes and records of the Planning Commission or the legislative body or fiscal court. And so those findings, one would be that the existing zoning classification given to the property is inappropriate, and that the proposed zoning classification is appropriate, and that there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved, which were not anticipated in the adopted comprehensive plan, and which have substantially altered the basic character of such area. It also states that the Planning Commission, legislative body, or fiscal court may adopt provisions which prohibit a period of 2 years for reconsideration if for a denied map amendment. In the staff report, you'll see Article 6.1, which goes into detail of what is permitted in an ag zoning district. And then you'll find Article 6.13, which goes into detail as what is approved or permitted in a highway business district. And that's the B3 district that is being requested for tonight. As stated a little earlier, the development plan for the parking requirement, we are asking for variance. And so for a retail space, we require one parking space for each 100 square feet for the first 2,500 square feet of floor area. Then we require we require one space for each 125 square feet for each 2,500 square feet, and then we require one for 150 square feet for each 2,500 square feet. So in a nutshell, what is being required, and also this property would be a low volume retail, so that's 50% less of what is required for your like say big box retail stores. And you can see the calculations. I said the applicant is requesting for a parking space variance allowing for a total of 20 spaces, 11 below the requirement for low volume retail. And that's when I kind of broke down how much would be required based on the regulations. So what they're asking for is 11 below the requirement. I know I said a lot. If there's any questions or comments for staff?
Did we do that on US 60?
We did. We did something similar for US 60 for the Dollar General.
Would the applicant like to come up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm John Romp here on behalf of both the applicant and the owner of the property. And I would submit to you, and I've got for you for your consideration, some proposed findings of fact that you can kind of follow along with as we go through tonight. But I would submit to you that actually this proposal is in agreement with the comprehensive plan. As Mr. Jeffries pointed out, I think most people are fairly familiar with this location, but Mr. Jeffries, if you'll kind of move forward a slide. We're talking about the area basically very close to the intersection of Flanagan Station Road and 627 or Boonesboro Road. The property highlighted here is a portion of a farm. And Mr. Jeffries, if you'll kind of go to the next slide, you can see the adjacent properties. What we're talking about, the rezoning, is not the entire tract, but we're talking about the small portion here in the front. This property, this commission, over the course, I think, of the last 5 years, has rezoned this on 2 separate occasions to B3 zoning. It's the Benton RV and Boat Storage. This property has been utilized as a mechanic shop for a long time. This property, as a child, I remember that was where Beach Market kind of had their nursery store, their garden store. I think then it became the golf cart sales, retail sales center, and then later on it became Al's Garden. Across the street, my recollection as a child, this is where Laymore Paving was located. There's now an electrician who has his shop there. JK's is here, and then Mary Beth Hendricks still owns this piece of property, which has been the mercantile store. It's been Beach Spring, but it's been used for commercial uses. This entire area, this area up here, this area here, and all of this area here are in the comprehensive plan for commercial use. This piece of property is part of the same farm. The same owners own the farm. This road basically is the dividing line in the comp plan future land use maps. But this whole area has been identified for commercial use. It's been identified for B3 zoning. That is the reason the applicant has selected B3 zoning, is actually to be in conformity with everything that's around it. The use the applicant intends to utilize for this property is actually permissible in B1, much less dense zoning. It's allowed in B1 zoning. But to be consistent with what has been done before, they've selected to be B3 and to be kind of uniform with what is also already in the area. This applicant is the same person, or the same development firm that was responsible for the development on Lexington Road at the Skyview. They're also the same developer who is responsible for the development of the Dollar General that's located on Veterans Memorial. Those 2 locations, they both did both of those. And I think in conjunction with staff, that's the other reason the zoning was selected, to kind of be uniform was what was there. But I would submit to you that the actual proposed use is something that is allowed in much lesser zoned districts.
What are you building there? What are they building?
A Dollar General.
Dollar General.
This shows you the current zoning in the area. So that light blue is all already zoned B3. And I would remind you that this commission, I was here for both the meetings, where this portion of this property, which is not on the main thoroughfare, was rezoned to B3 within the last 6 or 7 years. I think one of them probably was before COVID and one of them was after, is my recollection. But again, all of this property is identified in the comp plan for commercial use.
And it would appear that the map hasn't been updated, where the RV boat storage has expanded. That's also been.
That's also, and it's not shown on any of our publicly available maps, but it is, that has been rezoned. If you don't mind going forward, Mr. Jeffries. This surrounding area, I'm just kind of summarizing what I just said. This is an area that my entire time on this planet has been used for commercial uses. The commercial zoning of this predates our zoning ordinance. It was used for commercial uses prior to us even having a zoning ordinance in Clark County, and that has been continuous the entire time I have been alive. I'd also ask you to consider about where the location we're talking about is. It is on 627. It is a small portion that fronts on 627. It is not the entirety of that parcel. It is just the part that fronts. That is important because our comprehensive plan talks about what you should consider when you are thinking about allowing rural commercial development. And one of the factors is being located near a major roadway. And that makes common sense to locate commercial uses on good roads where you have adequate access to utilities and adequate access to transportation facilities. That is one of the things that you're supposed to be considering. And this is less than 1,000 feet from that intersection. It is, again, adjoining property that has already been zoned B3, and it is something that there's been much more intensive uses than a Dollar General store in that area for over 30 years. The next slide I think is very important. This is language verbatim from your comprehensive plan. And it talks about 5 factors that you should consider when you're thinking about places to locate rural commercial land. Should it serve the local residential community? I know there's people behind me that are not happy about the idea of a Dollar General, and they wouldn't care where it was located, but they're certainly not happy about it here. But the whole business model of Dollar Generals is to locate these types of facilities in more rural areas central to where there's residential housing. That's the whole purpose of them, is to serve that local community. You hear a lot about concerns about, I just was at a meeting 2 months ago where all we heard about was how we don't want traffic on the bypass. Well, the whole purpose of stores like this is to serve local communities without them having to travel to the commercial hub. That's what their whole business model is to serve the people, the residential areas around there. If you recall the zoning map, there is R1A zoning, across Boonesboro Road, on Old Boonesboro Road. There are neighborhoods back there. Most of this agricultural land has been subdivided into lots that are residential housing. The second criteria is it needs to be located on at least a minor collector road. Well, this beats that by a lot. It's located on a major thoroughfare. It's a state highway with extremely limited access. There needs to be adequate utilities. This will be on septic for sewer. There's water and electric available. The application was presented to the Technical Review Committee. The recommendations and the requests of the utility companies were taken into consideration on the plan that's before you tonight. Should not conflict with adjacent land uses. Again, I think you need to look at both at what the comp plan maps show you as this area being designated for commercial use, and also some things that will allow, I think, some protections for some of the people who have concerns about this being located near them. One of the first things I'd submit to you is this is going to be on the major roadway. The plan does comply with the lighting ordinances, the buffering ordinances, and it was an intentional thing here to come with a variance request, so actually to make the footprint of this smaller. The more parking that's going to be required, the more land that is required to accommodate that parking. So part of the idea of having less parking is you're actually taking up less of the land, and you're taking up less space generally. This property also is uniquely situated because of where it sits. There are significant elevation changes in the area. So if you're traveling out of town, if you can picture this property, I don't want to say it sits in a hole, but it sits at the bottom of a hillside. And the view shed is impacted by that. You won't be able to see this from some of the surrounding properties because of where it's located. That's just talking about the view shed. And the final part of it is that the design should complement surrounding developments, and some of that was taken into consideration with the parking variance. Have less parking to allow less concerns about traffic, less concerns about usage. The engineer is here today. There is included in that presentation, we can skip forward, some of the calculations about usage. And I would submit to you that the intended uses of retail centers like this actually have much less usage than our ordinance would require. I will also tell you that as a person who regularly attends the Technical Review Committee, one of the things we hear is we actually want less parking in commercial developments because all it does is take away green space. And you see people shaking their head. That's some of the feedback we're given, is that our ordinance actually requires more parking. And I think some of you, in your life experience would recognize that when you drive by Walmart or some of our larger shopping centers, the parking is never fully utilized, and we have excess, our parking requirements actually create excess hardscaping. So this was an attempt by the developer to take that into consideration, given the location, given what they're able to see. You did the exact same thing on the variance for the Lexington Road location. I think this is actually slightly less than that even. And I regularly drive by that store, and that parking lot is never overflowing with usage. So I'd submit to you that they were very intentional about taking into consideration some of that. In meeting with Fire and EMS, they're going to locate a fire hydrant in this area. We'll improve safety for that purposes. And then, like I said, they've met with the utility companies, and the utility companies have approved servicing this location and asked for the requisite easements. Rob, if you don't mind going forward. You are legally required to consider a number of things in considering a variance, and like I said, one of them is talking about public safety. I'd submit to you there's a letter from the engineer talking about usage, and I would submit to you that is sufficient evidence that it's not going to be a hazard or a nuisance to have less parking. That's what they're talking about, is whether or not less parking would cause that hazard or the nuisance or create something that would adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. So I would submit to you, you have an engineer's letter before you tonight documenting that the anticipated usage at the highest volume would actually only require 17.1 or 2 parking spaces, and they've submitted to be on the safe side of playing with 20 parking spaces. And again, their intent with the variance is actually to have more in line with the character of the general vicinity versus having excess parking that they don't anticipate needing to be utilized. So I would submit to you for all of these reasons that your comprehensive plan does actually provide significant basis for commercial development in this area, primarily to match what has happened in this area for 30 years, and also the comprehensive plan committee's foresight to know that it is likely to continue to happen. And that is why they've identified this area, even properties that are not zoned commercially. The comprehensive plan has identified this area for future growth. I would ask to reserve some time in rebuttal, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, the engineer from Vantage Engineering is here if you have any specific questions for him as well.
Have you already had conversations with the state about the entrance and all that?
I have, and Mr. Chair, I've shared this. The first thing is the parking thing that I was talking about. I apologize. I should have shared that when I was talking about it. The second, though, is just the email exchange today. The state is very backed up, but part of the intentionality behind this design is to utilize an existing entrance, and that is one of the requirements. My understanding of 627 from the county line all the way into town is a very restricted access. So one of the things they're going to be required to do is use the existing farm access that is there. You'll notice in the email, the state talks about the need to expand that entrance to provide appropriate safety measures, guardrails, things of that nature. But there is not approval of it, but there is also a subdivision plat that has been prepared, and there's a notation on that plat. And I think the applicant's happy to make it part of a restriction here today that the entrance has to be approved by the state before the zoning can take effect. That's going to be a requirement for them anyway, so they're not going to have an issue with that at all. But that's fresh off the press. That they got that response today, and the state's just backlogged, but they don't anticipate any issues, sightlines, et cetera, based on as long as they use that existing entrance, which is what the plan shows.
Does this landlock the property behind it if you're only using the front?
No, there's an access road that will service the rest of the farm. And if this is approved, there's an agreement between the parties for a joint access easement.
The access easement is shown on the plan.
Correct.
Remember.
Correct. And again, this property adjoins the properties that are already commercially utilized.
Any other questions for the applicant from the commission?
Thank you.
Thank you. This time we'll open the floor to public comment. For anyone that'd like to speak for or against this, please come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Kelvin Portwood, and we own the property right beside there. So this is what our view looks like right now. My wife and I bought this property 30 years ago and built our house. My neighbor, the same, and the one on top of the hill. So would any of y'all in here, would y'all trade this view? Would you trade that view for the back of the dollar store, the parking lot of the back of the dollar store?
I'm happy to answer your question.
Sir, you don't have to.
So you're gonna be putting a dollar store there, and like you got 5-acre tracts. You got like 29 homes with 5-acre tracts. So like a dollar store put there is not needed. There's nobody out there that probably even shops at the dollar store. There's a dollar store that's 3 miles down the road in town. You got 4 miles to Walmart, 4 miles to Kroger. You get into Publix. You got Aldi's, and not only that, the dollar store right there on Boone Avenue's got a sign on the door now that says they'll deliver. So there's no need for that dollar store in that area. There's nobody that lives in that area that has ever said, man, I wish we had a dollar store. So it's not needed, it's not wanted, and it's not going to be, you're going to have people driving down 55-mile-an-hour road, going 65, stopping to turn in, and people pulling out of the dollar store right beside our driveways, where my daughter pulled out and almost got killed before. So it's going to be a safety issue. It's going to be an eyesore type issue. it's not needed and it isn't wanted. So I don't know, what the justification of it would be, how you would justify doing it. So that's basically it. That's my view I got right now. Sky and land. And I'm gonna trade that, or they wanna trade that for the back of a dollar store and a dumpster, but with a small parking lot though. Cause, you know why? Cause there ain't gonna be nobody going to the damn thing. Who's gonna go to it? You gonna go to Kroger's and get your groceries? Walmart? Who's gonna go to the dollar store and get your groceries? So, we don't want it, we don't need it, and I don't know how y'all can justify it. You got a new development already. You put the high school out there, that's fine, that's progress, that's good. A lot of traffic. You put the new little Hamburg there, that's 300 or 400 houses. People that can't, they're not gonna be working in Winchester. They're gonna get on they're gonna get on that road, come right down by my house and get on 75 and go to work. And they're gonna do the opposite. And then all the traffic, tractor and trailers that come down 75 and need to go 64 east, they all go down that way too. So all you're gonna hear is like traffic up and down, and it's gonna be a safety issue. So has there been like a traffic impact study done on it? Is there a traffic impact study?
I'll address the commission.
Because we want to know, like what's the justification of it? So he's only going to have 11 spots, so you're going to have like maybe 15 customers a day. Like that doesn't justify it. And the 15 customers is probably not even going to be any of the people that live there. JK's a nice place, Beach Springs, all that. There's nothing out there that screams, we need a dollar store. So that's about all I got to say about it. I don't want it, don't need it, and I don't think y'all can justify it.
My name is Krista Portwood. That's my husband. We're going to be the neighbors to the Dollar General. Dollar General historically builds places that are in rural areas, and they build places where people don't have access to cars. A lot of the places that we have make sense. It makes sense when you're coming in from Lexington. All those people that have a Dollar General don't have to come all the way into town. Or if you're out on what's the new bypass, that's a long way out. That's a long way to town. That Dollar General is going to be 3.1 miles from the one we already have. 4.1 miles from Walmart. It's not rural. It's not an inconvenience to drive an extra 3 miles. You're going to put in a fire hydrant? We have a fire hydrant. When they moved the water meter from that area, from the Honeckers property across 627 in front of the 3 houses that are there, they put fire hydrant. We have one. It's not going to add safety because we already have one right there where the houses are. I'm sure I probably had other things that I wanted to say, but I really thought it was a joke when my husband said they're going to put a Dollar General there, and I was like, it's so close. How many are we gonna have? I guess that's what I'm asking. If you talk to people about what does Winchester not need, another Dollar General is going to be right up there. Because, and especially this one, I don't understand the justification. I'm for progress, but 3 miles from another one, it doesn't make sense. It's not rural in the way that you're saying. Nobody that lives out there thinks that they're in a rural area because we're so close. But I do believe that you said 627 isn't a major thoroughfare.
I'll respond to the commission, but I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I'm just clarifying because that's what I heard. It might not have been what he said, but I'm like, 627 for our Clark County is definitely a major thoroughfare from people going from the one interstate crossing over and going to the other, and you're list of what they tried to look for, in my understanding, was that they tried to pick places that weren't as busy, like some of these other places we're talking about. US 60 going to Lexington isn't going to hold the traffic that 627 does, or out where the new bypass is. So anyway, that's what I think. I thought it was a joke. It didn't make any sense to me why we're going to use this land to put something there that we're already serviced. We don't need it. There isn't, as my husband said, anybody who was saying, oh gosh, I wish I could save that 4 miles and just go here. 4 miles is not an inconvenience for anybody. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Anyone else?
I'll go. Hello, everybody. My name is Diana Kirk, and I live on Old Boonesboro Road, which is directly behind New Brunsboro Road, or in front of, if you want to call it either way. But this proposed property, to us, when I read it, I also thought it was a joke, because we have 6, I think, already, and not counting the Dollar Trees and not counting the Family Dollars and all these dollar stores. But I just wanted to tell you guys that I recall at Christmas, at the dollar store down up by the old, well, right by here, just right down here, there was a sign up on the door there. And I was going through there, I think I'd gotten gas, and I just went up there and I saw this sign on the door, and it said, unfortunately, we can't open today because no one wants to show up for work. That's what it said. And that is not uncommon for our dollar store here in Winchester. People, if they do have somebody working in there, it's substandard. You hardly get help. I have gone in there. I have frequented there before. And it's junky. So I'm looking out my, drive. There'll be tons of semis coming through there, and you'll hear the Jake brakes going, and it's now, just because of the high school and all the new residential areas going to come in, it's going to get worse, and we're okay with that because, like was said a while ago, it is progress, and we appreciate that. However, we don't want progress to be mistaken as junking up our beautiful lands around us. And Mr. Rump, I know you were talking about, all those other areas, the businesses around, have been zoned for that type of thing, but they're farming business. They're like small, community businesses. It's not like a Dollar General that will junk up our beautiful areas. To me, it's just a no-brainer. It's idiotic, if you ask me. I think it's all about, trying to get money, and I get it. But I think it's the wrong place, period, for our community. For our side of town, I think it's wrong. And I really hope that you all think so as well. That's all I got.
Sir in the back.
My name's Ron Allen. I'm one of the neighbors that this is going to affect. Counselor made the point that all the commercial things around there, all those commercial things around us, and that's a true statement. But all those commercial things around us, none of them are corporately owned. None of them have massive Dollar General store signs. They have very small community. They're very community-minded businesses. The Beach Springs, everything he named. The old tack shop. It fit within the category of what we would think would be around us. So we didn't think anything of it. But when we heard something corporate's coming in with the big flashy sign out front and creating, it will create people fly on that road. And this will just be one more inlet for that. So I
I would take very cautiously what he was saying about all these businesses surrounding us, when in fact all these businesses are mom and pop businesses.
Exactly. And those mom and pop businesses were there before Ron and I bought our property 30 years ago. Okay. All right.
And to his point, they were there before we ever bought our homes there. They've been there for a long time. And I hope they're there for a long time to come. But they don't come with traffic issues. They don't come with those kinds of things. They're off the highway. So that's all I have to say.
Does anyone else like to speak? Okay. We'll close the floor for public comment, allow the applicant to provide his rebuttal statements.
I'd like to just introduce the engineer real quickly. He's going to address a couple of those issues, the traffic being one and the view shed being the other. And then I'll answer the other questions that were raised.
I'm Will Stevens with Vantage Engineering from Harrodsburg, and I represent the applicant as his engineer. Just to speak to the traffic concerns and just to be more specific, in the email thread that was provided today, we reached out to KYTC probably upward 4 or 5 months ago, and one of the first things we discussed was that 627 is heavily restricted in terms of access. They will not allow new commercial entrances. You have to use an existing point of entry and expand upon that. And so that was part of the reason why this site was selected, was that it had a suitable existing point of entry in discussion with KYTC. And then, we've since submitted a full set of construction plans. They haven't had time to fully review, but I did reach out again today just to reconfirm that KYTC still does agree with us that this is an appropriate location for an entrance. As far as traffic concerns, the most recent one here in your community was on Lexington Road. That has a traffic count of about 8,000 cars per day. This location is about 9,100 cars per day. In terms of, from an engineering standpoint, a similar classification of road. There were no turn lanes on the highway required. We have never been required on major highways to have turn lanes, and that's simply because the Dollar General is not a high-intensity form of retail use. It's a convenience that's used throughout the day, but there aren't peak periods like a Walmart where you have rush hour at 5 p.m. and you have cars stacked up on the highway. They just don't meet that level of need. So we don't intend to have any additional turn lanes, and I'm confident that they will not be required by the highway department. As far as the view shed, it's hard unless you're out there to see it, but I'll try to describe as best I can. Behind our building to the southeast, so heading towards the county line, there's a large hill. The building itself will sit, the finished floor of the building, so the bottom of the building where you walk in, sits about 20 feet below the top of the hill adjacent to it, behind it. That hill will help screen the building from the adjacent homes that are to the southeast of the school. That was what he was alluding to with the view shed, is that we're not as exposed as you might expect to the nearest homes on the highway because of the terrain. And that was intentional in how we laid the site out, was to try to use the terrain to our advantage to help screen.
Because it's an eyesore.
That's about all I've got. He summarized parking well. The packet that you have is based on something that's an industry standard as far as using calculating the use of parking. In addition to that, Dollar General themselves reduced their requirement for this type of store from 30 spaces to 20 in the past year, and that's based on their own internal data. And like you say, you don't want to have unused paved space. That degrades the environment. That just creates more intensity than you need in terms of the building.
Thank you all.
Just to address some of the comments, and then I will answer questions that you have. When you're considering zoning, you've got some things that you're supposed to look at, and what you're supposed to look at is that comprehensive plan. And for our purposes, this is a rural commercial development. That's what it is within our comp plan. That's what it is within the regulations that you're supposed to consider. And I would submit to you that those factors that you're supposed to consider are met by this. I would also submit to you that you are not in a position where you know, I can understand a neighbor may feel one way about a corporate entity versus a mom and pop, but as a planning commission, you cannot legally discriminate against the end user and what their brand is. We have a zoning ordinance, and what is before you is not about a Dollar General. It is about the type of zoning that this property is going to have. And I would submit to you, as recognized by some of the comments, this area has had significant commercial use since before anyone moved out there. My father did the rezoning of the 5-acre tracts that sit on Boonesboro Road. All of those came into existence after all that commercial use was out there. It was much more intensive commercial use. Your job as a commission, as you know, is to evaluate the zoning request. In terms of being transparent, yeah, we're going to tell you what the end user is and what the type of use is, but we're not required to do that. You're asked to look at what the end user's use is going to be and make a determination about whether or not the zoning is appropriate within the guardrails that you've been given by your community in the comprehensive plan. And those are if you look at the comprehensive plan, it's repeated on page 80 and 82, the same exact things, and it says exactly what you're supposed to look at. And I would submit to you that all of those are met. I would ask for you to grant tonight the request of the zone map amendment. I would also ask you to grant the variance, because I think those two things go hand in hand with one another. And I would ask that if you're going to do that you consider a motion that incorporates the finding of facts that I've submitted to you. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have, and otherwise I'll sit down and thank you for your time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll close the floor and open up to the commission for discussion and motion.
Mr. Gullett, for legality purposes, does it match every comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance?
Ma'am, your all's decision tonight is based on KRS 100.213, as is all zone map amendment applications, or as ours. I agree with Mr. Roth that the question about exactly what type of business or how it's going to be run is generally not relevant. The issue is have one of the three bases for a zone map amendment been met. And KRS 102.3 is in your pamphlet tonight, but it requires one of three things. The last two are easy because they have not been argued by the applicant, and that is a major change of social, economic nature, a physical nature in the area not contemplated in the comprehensive plan, and that is probably because there haven't been any since our recently adopted comprehensive plan was approved. The other is the inappropriate appropriate as to the current zoning has not been argued. The findings that have been tendered specifically say that in accordance with KRS 100.213, the zoning classification contained in the map amendment request is in agreement with the Clark County Winchester Comprehensive Plan. And then he sets forth 8 different paragraphs which set forth his argument of why this is in agreement with the comprehensive plan. Obviously, as outlined by Rob earlier, this property is on the future land use map as future agriculture, which is not in compliance with this zoning request. I can't tell you, it's ultimately not my decision, it's your own decision, whether the presentation you've heard is in compliance with the comp plan or not. I will say in fairness that while I don't take issue with the goals and objectives that are referred to in Mr. Romp's proposed findings, goals and objectives are such well, they're just written in a fashion that, to be perfectly honest, you could justify to some extent just about anything you wanted to with one goal or another. That does not mean that they're not important, and that does not mean that compliance with them cannot sustain the zone map amendment. But the ultimate decision is your all's. Does the argument that has been made by the applicant outweigh the fact, as I understand it, Rob, am I correct, it's on the future land use map as agricultural?
Yeah, so if you look behind me on the overhead, you'll see this is a screenshot of the future land use map for the rural future land use areas, where this is located. And you can see, and again, for the most part, we try to go along the property boundary line. And so if I were, and I can pull up the GIS map for clarification if needed, but this line here is just going along that current property boundary line. And so it appears by this map that the adjoining property has been identified for commercial development, but this property has been identified green for agriculture. And so like you said, the goals and objectives are good to review and to understand, and maybe that could have a justification in this rezoning, but we have to study both goals and objectives as well as the future land use map.
Mr. Chair, if I may just quickly for the record, the property that's outlined in red that Mr. Jeffries is referring to is part of the same farm that this property comes out of. It is the front portion, and this farm the use of it is split by the future land use map. Part of it is showing commercial development, part of it is not. I would also submit to you that the rezoned property that was done on Flanagan Station Road previously to B3 from agricultural was not identified any differently than this property is identified. And I would also submit to you, you've heard from your legal counsel, there's very specific state law in Kentucky that the future land use maps are not binding. They can't be your only justification for changing it or not changing it. You need to rely on the entire comprehensive plan as your guide for making a decision regarding a zone map.
So I just pulled the GIS map, and so this is the property boundary line that I was discussing, that solid white line going along. It would appear that from that solid white line up to Flanagan Station, that area has been identified on future land use map as, that's not so this line here up to Flanagan Station identified in red for commercial. And again, it appears to go along the same line as this property boundary. I mean, it would appear let me just double check. As Mr. Romp says, it is owned by the Spargos. So they're both owned by the same property, so it is essentially the same farm, but for whatever reason, there's a property boundary separated.
So it's not in the comp plan, it's not.
It's not in the future land use map, but like Mr. Romp and Mr. Golett have stated, it's, we need to not just study the future land use map, but also study the goals and objectives. I would say that the future land use map is a solid and very important tool when determining whether or not the request is in line with the comprehensive plan. But because the comprehensive plan contains both land use map and goals and objectives, we want to study both.
Any more discussion from the commission?
I just wanted some clarification too. So the parcel that we're looking at, like if this is to be rezoned, oh my goodness, sorry. Let me get that box away. It's essentially this corner property, right? So the Dollar General property, if it were to be rezoned, would share a boundary line with the farm, not the residential properties.
And that's what I'm trying to kind of get clear across. A portion of the property is already shown for commercial use on your land use map. So
I-
it's this, the parcel that will be created, part of it is shown for commercial use.
I
Part of it
apologize.
is not. So that's what I'm trying to get across to you. The map isn't binding in either way, but part of it is shown for commercial use. And it all of it is on one farm that is, part of it is shown.
And so that proposed boundary line would be somewhere like where my cursor is, like in this area?
Correct, because it has to encompass the existing entrance.
Okay, so I apologize.
So half of it is already commercial, technically?
I wouldn't say half of a portion of the property has been identified for commercial, and the other portion of the property is identified as agriculture. I apologize for misleading.
It's okay, I wasn't being clear.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, possible motion? Any other discussion or possible motion?
So, an additional question quickly, for our council. I can say, I personally, as was talked about, that's, what it's going to be used for, we can't be discriminatory on that case, right? But where part of the property, other than it being, in the land use map as agricultural, is there any other legal, or precedent for not approving this? Is that the single item?
Well, obviously that would not necessarily be the single item if you, I'm sure there are goals and objectives that you could argue do not support it, and maybe other areas of the plan, but this is what happens when groups oppose, but oppose without counsel. They make arguments which may have all the merit in the world, but they're not directed toward the areas of the comp plan that really give the commission much of a foothold in making a recommendation to deny.
And to ask the applicant, what were the goals as far as why does this fit in, just to clarify for me, why does this fit in with the goals of the comprehensive plan?
Well, one of the goals is to promote commercial development, and that's cited, regularly by me. I think it's on its face apparent that when you're talking about adding any commercial business, you're going to that goal. But the main thing that I'd ask you to look at is there are criteria very specifically set forth for areas where you should have rural commercial development. And those are the 5 things that were on my slide. They're right before you. I think it's the very first finding of fact. Those are the things in the comp plan that you're supposed to consider. And I would submit to you that all of those have been met. And, rural commercial growth is always difficult because it's the area where we are bringing growth into an area where it doesn't exist. It wasn't argued, but it was put in your staff report about changes in the area. And you've heard tonight, you're going to have a huge residential community on 627 too. You have a high school on 627. This area has changed tremendously in the last 30 years, and it's going to continue to change. This commission is all the time tasked with looking at areas for growth, and they're always going to be on your major thoroughfares. That's just the reality of where commercial development is going to take place. So if you're asking for the specifics, I would say it's page 80 and 82 of your comp plan, and then the goals are about economic growth. And I've tried the best that I can to put in your findings of fact the areas that would support that. I don't disagree with Mr. Gullett. You hired a lawyer. Mr. Thomas and I could argue either side of any of these things. That's what lawyers are paid to do. But that's why you have a document that tells you what you're supposed to consider. And I'm not misrepresenting what it says. I literally copied and pasted that, quoted it straight from the comp plan. And that's what you're supposed to consider.
So looking at the existing zoning of the properties, and again, I might be looking at this wrong, and please correct me, any lawyers in the room, but the existing entrance is right here, so it pretty much lines up with the boundary line. And if you look at the plan, the entrance is not changing. And so the portion of the property that is on the property that has been identified on the future land use map for commercial development is just this small portion here that would be where the access road is currently. The rest of the property though, now the future land use map and the existing zoning maps are different. Future land use says what we anticipate, existing zoning is what's there today. So if we turn this on, basically what we would be rezoning, we'll have a little jog out here and then a larger square here to B3. This would remain agriculture and everything else around it would remain agriculture. Is that correct for the most part?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what you don't done, of this 44 acres, is to remain what you currently done, which is agriculture.
One thing that I would add is this is one farm. The Benton property you've rezoned multiple times comes out of this same exact farm.
Right.
This is the same, I mean, yes, it's multiple legal parcels, but it is the same farm that you've already rezoned twice in the last 6 years. I don't know this, but my assumption is that Benton thing looks pretty full to me now, and that every time it's gotten full, they've come back to you and asked to rezone more land. So I don't know for a fact that's gonna happen, but I'm not gonna represent to you that there's not gonna be a request to rezone the rest of this. This is an area that is changing, and I would suggest it's probably that whole part that's designated for future growth is certainly going to be commercial property someday. It's already designated that way, but it's part of the same property. It's just a different parcel of the same farm.
Any more discussion?
To answer one of the questions that they had, there was a traffic study done because they had the numbers of 9,100 versus, I think it was 83, from 60 to 627, is that correct?
The numbers that I'm citing are from a traffic count performed by the Kentucky Department of Highways. We do not perform it, but it's publicly available data. It wasn't performed specific to the Dollar General, it was for the entire highway.
Thank you.
And to be very direct, there has not been a traffic study performed. There's not a traffic study is required by our regulations for a singular use like this.
What is the pleasure of the commission? We got 4 more agenda items after this.
I'll just add, I know it was mentioned that in the sample motions or in the staff report, it talked about anticipating or if anything was anticipated or not anticipated. And when in the sample motions, you'll find language about that. It doesn't mean that you have to use that language, but in fact, it's in both, if you want to use it for a motion to approve or deny, that language is in both. So whether you find that major change is taken in the area that wasn't anticipated in the comp plan, or you do not find that major changes has taken place, so when writing the staff report, with the information presented to me, that's the way I felt I could go with any sample motions, knowing that the future land use map did identify as a portion of the property for commercial, but not the entire portion. This is just language that you might. I think if you find one more appropriate, then you find the existing one appropriate.
I was for the commission to come up with my thoughts. I personally lean away from this one as with comprehensive plan is for agricultural, and I feel like the goal of the plan was to maintain as much agricultural land as we get out of the city center. I just like to hear your opinions too on this one. That's how I feel like that currently is.
You just know our opinion on having ag, keeping it from the centralized hub because it's not in the conflict. You must know our opinion.
I can't hear you.
I was trying to repeat what he said.
Just put it this close, just in case.
And I can address, I think I can hear you, and I can address that. I mean, the applicant is willing to be zoned B1 and be a buffer against what you're talking about, because that's, they only submitted the application the way it was done because of the fact that the surrounding uses were already zoned that way. But from a planning perspective, if you want to send a message that we're trying to preserve, that they're fine with B1. They were just trying to be consistent and compatible with what's already there. So, if you're talking about wanting to create a buffer because this, because of the ag land surrounding it, they're fine with that. We were just trying to meet, the objective of being consistent. So, the comp plan calls for consistency, and that was the reason it was asked for B3 zoning. So they're fine with B1. Their use is, like I said, it's a less intense use, and they're fine with that. So if that's something the commission wants to consider, they're willing to amend their application to reflect that.
And Bobby, if that's the case, if this commission would rather it be more like a buffer zone and go B1 route, I know it was advertised as B3, but knowing that you can get more uses, more dense uses in the B3 zone, would it be appropriate for them to entertain for a B1?
Well, the party at risk is the applicant, and if they're willing to do it, and it is in effect a down zone.
Yeah, a more restrictive zone.
It's more restricted, so to me, it's like if you ask for a 20-foot variance, and the board gives you a 15-foot variance, you've advertised for greater. So I think if the board wanted to make a recommendation to approve this as a B1 zone, that probably is within your right.
And I just pulled up the zoning district overhead so you can see the uses that are permitted. So the B1 is a neighborhood business district. The B3 is a highway business district. And so these neighborhood business districts were created or identified as areas that, permitted those different commercial uses that would be good for a neighborhood, or acceptable for a more residential area. And your highway business district is stuff, you'll find on a more commercial corridor. It doesn't change the goals or objectives in the comp plan, or doesn't change the future land use map in the comp plan. But if we looked at it like a buffer zone, I could see where that could be a case.
We've already got B3 on the town side of it.
Right. It's like be a buffer between the residential or agriculture and the commercial. I'm not saying I'm advocating for it. I'm just saying it could be logical.
I think we have to be very cognizant of the parent piece of land that originally has been bit by bit rezoned. And we are in a unique situation because the current zoning for this piece of land in entirety is split. Yes, it's a small amount, but it's still an amount. And I think in the past 6 years, we have created a precedent from this parent piece that on the periphery of how it's been done, that we have said we've allowed it. And putting ourselves in a position, I think we, personally, we go in there and we think about what the zoning is and who the end user is, but as people on this board, we are to take what our charge is and to be consistent with what our zoning has done without prejudice of an end user or somebody's ability to do something that they've asked and pick and choose.
So I know that the more recent rezoning for the area has been the Benton RV boat storage. And a big finding of fact that was given for that rezoning, for both of those rezonings, so they came before you twice, was the future land use map identifying it for commercial development. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm relatively new to the commission, right? I've only been here a few months. As I look at it as a commission, what are our goals in this one? Do we want to preserve the agricultural land? Is that, are we going to set precedent that it is our goal from this point, right, to do that? Or let's pretend it was years ago at this point, 5 years ago, to do that, rezone that to B3 or do things. So I think it's just as we go through and talk about this, do we want to say, we feel like we should draw a hard line on the agricultural land? Or are we saying that at this point, because I think this is kind of a hinge point, how much do we want to develop these thoroughfares, these roadways? What do we want to have happen in Clark County? I'm really kind of looking at it personally. What is my goal in this situation? I feel like I'm inclined to try and maintain the ag land. That's the way I feel. But I'm also, in general, very pro business and development in a lot of things. So that's why I'm waffling on this. That's why I want to hear some discussion. I feel like as a commission, that is one of my priorities, is to maintain some pretty ag land, building grounds, and then develop the areas we want developed based on the plan. That's how I justify my thoughts at this point. But if someone has a contradictory thought, right, so hey, if we have precedent that constantly this is what we do.
I mean, we can agree to disagree. I think we have to look at the parent track. I mean, the parent track, and where it is going from. You've got this little piece that is commercial, and we're going to go over and come out over here. And we're not going to this piece that is so contiguous with it. We're not going to come out over to the other side. So I think that there is some contiguous nature of this that.
So I guess that is one of my concerns, where if you're just cutting out little pieces of land all over the place instead of maintaining those ponds, right? Which, again, we have to pay is dedicated to development, but we really want to develop. But I personally really want to see development. Right? So I start to feel like in this case that we're cutting out little slivers here, cutting out little slivers here. It's kind of the opposite of what I feel like my goals are. But again, if you want to argue against it, I'd love to hear it. I'm really looking for. I'm open on this, but I'm currently leaning in one direction. So if someone has a good argument the opposite direction, I'd love to hear it currently on the commission.
I do believe that we have to follow the law, and sometimes the law is not always. Like I'm all about saving land. I live in the country, but we also have to follow the law, not our gut.
I agree entirely. That's why it's currently on plan as agriculture. So that's what I kind of look at is, do we have the ability to do this, or should we not? I think that's
why we have goals and objectives in the comprehensive plan, to make it not so concrete, living and breathing. You can't. I don't think we can anticipate a plan. I think how often do we redo it? Every 6 years?
We're required to adopt it every 5. We
adopt it every 5 years, and we can't think in that moment of time that at that 5-year mark nothing is going to change until the next 5-year mark. Therefore, we have goals and objectives, and it's a living, breathing document, and it is. I mean, and just like council has said today, and I think anytime you engage with council, you realize that council can argue either way.
Right.
And so, and that's why we have goals and objectives, because we could argue either way if goals.
That's where my discussion of goals, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. I feel like I really want to maintain some of that flag land. That's why I feel like that is there. But I also do want to see development. So, it's a hard one.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make my motion.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to forward a recommendation to the governing body to approve the zone map amendment to rezone the 2.699 acres located at 4690 Boonesboro Road from agriculture A1 to highway business B3, finding the existing A1 zoning inappropriate for the property and proposed B3 zoning more appropriate based on the fact that the economic and physical character of the Boonesboro Road and Flanagan Station Road intersection has seen an increase in commercial activity. I'd like to add Mr. Rump's proposed findings of fact in my motion.
For a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Kim, can we do a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Nesbitt? Yes. Commissioner Smith?
Vote nay.
Do I call you or not?
I don't really know, but yes.
Commissioner Fabry, yes. Okay. Commissioner Hart?
Yes.
Commissioner Bush? Yes. Commissioner Hill? Yes. And Commissioner Hill?
Yes.
It's 5 yeas and 1 no.
5 yes and 1 no. Motion passes.
The only thing else we need to entertain a motion for is the development plan, and then the plat will be approved by staff. And with the development plan, they ask for a variance for the parking.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the development plan for the proposed rezoning of the property located at 4690 Boonesboro Road, including parking variance, allowing a total of 20 parking places, which is 11 under the requirement based on the projected total provided by the applicant. The fact that the plan has been through technical review and meets the requirements as found within the Winchester Clark County Development Subdivision regulations.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
This is when the development done, right? Those are the
The development plan motion.
Yeah. Okay, that's something.
Oh, did we do a vote, Kim?
Do I need to vote on this?
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought.
All those in favor of approving the development plan say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into public hearing B, reviewing a preliminary development plan proposing 198 single-family lots for the 47.7 acre planned development zone property addressed at 2860 Lexington Road and located at the end of Frontier Way.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can we please get a 5-minute recess?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Recess. 5 minutes. We'll come back at 8:15.
This thing stayed good.
Go ahead and stop it. Yeah, go ahead. We'll just stop it.
Huh? I haven't stopped. See, there's a time still left. Good you go. I'll make sure it stays red. All right.
Oh, yeah. I know originally you said you had to take it back for here
Oh my God.
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. Rob, do you want to go over the staff report for Public hearing.
Yes, so the next item on the hearing tonight is for 2860 Lexington Road. It's a total of 42.7 acres. The applicant submitted a development plan application proposing to continue the single-family development on the back 42.70 acres of the 347.81 acre property along 2860 Lexington Road, or US 60. The development is shown connecting to Frontier Way and Gibson Way. The property is shown on the future land use map as being anticipated for planned community neighborhood. The property is already zoned planned development. So this hearing tonight is just for the development plan itself. In the staff report, you'll see the description for planned community neighborhood, as well as the existing zoning plan development district, going over the principal uses and special uses within the area. And then you have sample motions to approve or deny. Also, I'll go ahead and put up the proposed development plan. Any questions or comments for staff?
This is already in everything zoned correctly and everything?
Correct, yes. So as the last time we reviewed this was, for this area, was for when Ball Homes was proposing to develop, I think in the frontier there, Strawberry and Gibson Way. And so now we have this new plan that I think that is either finished, or I think there might be, maybe if there are any lots left to develop, maybe two. No, it's all done, all right. And so this is the next phase of that development.
And the entrance is on 60?
So the entrance to this would continue. You can see Gibson and Frontier. So in the areas, if you wanted to point your little doohickey.
Oh, I love my doohickey.
So you can see Frontier there, and at the bottom is that Gibson?
Gibson, and they'll connect in. So unfortunately, Ms. Bush, we have a stubbed road right here, which leads toward Lexington Road. But right now, as it relates to the current infrastructure, Frontier Way is the only entrance. And this is just a continuation of the existing.
What was already, okay.
Yeah, but we do have connectivity here because we also have Gibson down here leading up. So it does have some connectivity to get around. But we do have it stubbed here, and then for future development, we have this road stubbed, and we've got Gibson Way continue to be stubbed.
Yeah, and so we have also a future. So this was before I was thought of. Well, I'm sure I was thought of, but I wasn't in Winchester yet. So this shows a stub out street that would hopefully one day connect to Colby. And so we're looking at this area right in here. These, correct?
Yes.
No.
No.
Up the top.
I think you're looking
right
here.
to the right, Ryan. You see the pond there? No,
Oh, there.
right there.
Yeah. So this is where the pond is here, and we're looking in this development about where
Left, Ryan, go left to the pond. If you
the
want
pond is here, but the preschool
left.
This big green pond is what we're talking about.
This
right?
one.
There you go.
And so we're here.
It's okay. Because
Yeah.
it's not going to go to Colby and Armando.
Well, and so I just wanted to talk about how it was definitely talked about how we wanted to make sure there's plenty of future development sites, that maybe one day connect to Colby and hopefully connect to Lexington. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up is, that's something definitely that we talked for a good long time in the technical review, and that's why they provided that the future or the development plan that was approved years ago, showing that you are planning a stub out street to Colby on another phase of this development. But on this phase of the development, you have a stub out street leading to Lexington.
Right.
In hopes that one day soon, because that can really help not just with the proposed development, but the existing development that's there, the traffic that we see.
Correct.
You done with your stuff?
Okay.
Brian?
I mean, this should be pretty cookie cutter. I mean, we've heard a lot about what you have. I mean, this shows the streets, it shows the lot size, it shows the setbacks. Everything's on there. Our utilities are already marked. Isn't that right, Mr. Ward?
Shown on the plan.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty cookie cutter. It shouldn't have any issues. If there are any questions, Mr. Ward can answer any technical questions.
Any questions from the commission for the applicant? Okay. We'll open it up to the floor. Is anyone here that'd like to speak for or against this? Please come up.
is Cliff Edwards. I'm a resident right now in Strawberry Lane. I also work with I think it's the largest employer in Winchester, Maximus, on the end of the street there. Spoken with several residents, as a member of the HOA there. We have major concerns with traffic. Right now, there's 3 schools over there. As I mentioned, the largest employer in Winchester. Lowe's is in there, and there's already a ton of residential back there. When there's an event at the school, you can't even get to your house. The stub-out streets that are planned are not enough. You need to widen infrastructure if you want to do that. But it just doesn't seem like it will work in that area. I'm representing a lot of the residents in the neighborhood already. We'd love to see more development, but we need concrete plans for transportation. I challenge any of you to go over there at school drop-off when that's happening and take a look at that, or even better, wait for an event at any of the schools, let alone all 3, and then try to drive through there. It's very difficult. Like I said, we'd like to see more development, but you definitely need more stub-out streets than what's shown there. And with that development taking place before that infrastructure is in place is also another area that will cause major headaches. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll close the floor for public comment. Is there any rebuttal from the applicant?
No.
Okay. We'll close the floor to the commission for discussion and possible motion.
Rob, this is just another phase of what had already been approved years previously, correct? This is nothing new.
Correct. It's another phase of what was approved when Ball Home was proposing for development.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary development plan for the proposed 198 single-family resident development to be located on the back 42.70 acres in the property located at 2860 Lexington Road, accessed by Gibson Way and Frontier Way, based on the fact that the property is anticipated as planned community neighborhood, which designates a mixture of including single-family uses. The project will be continuum of the single-family neighborhood located on Frontier Way and Gibson Way. The plan has been through technical review and meets the requirement as found within the Winchester-Clark County Development and Subdivision Regulations.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
As staff, I just encourage you to have those discussions with the school board and get that road to Lexington, because that's going to help tremendously.
Next, we'll move into our public hearing E. Reviewing amended development plan for the 94.86 acre planned development zone property located at 2500 Mount Sterling Road, consisting of single-family, multifamily, and commercial use. First phase A, total of 69 single-family lots.
The applicants submitted an amended development plan for the 94.86 acre planned development zone property. The whole thing consists of single-family, multifamily, and commercial use. The original development plan was reviewed in conjunction with the zoning map amendment application reviewed and approved at the September 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. During the September 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission motioned to recommend approval for the rezoning, and the Commission also motioned to approve the preliminary development plan. So that's noted, and the language is shown in the staff report. You'll see that the existing zoning is planned development, and there's a sample motion to approve and a sample motion to deny. Some of the changes that has taken place, you'll see. I included both the plan that was approved in 2025 and also the plan that is up for tonight. And so one of the changes you'll see is the cul-de-sacs. Previously, I apologize. Previously, these streets looped onto the main street here. Now they would like to cul-de-sac those lots, and also they'd also like to change the front yard setback on the lots, on the 69 lots as well. I'll have the applicant come forward and he can speak a little bit more about the different changes or amendments. But those are the two that staff noted, the setbacks and also the cul-de-sac lots.
How much of a setback?
He could correct that.
Sorry, Mr. Bush, what was your question?
The setbacks, how much was the setback change?
It was from 50 foot to 30 foot, and the reason for that, and Mr. Ward from Palmer Engineering is here, he could probably speak more intelligently about this, but once they got the plan approved, and they got into kind of the grading permit and the changes in the elevation, in order for the lots to appropriately have housing that was going to be commercially feasible, essentially, we need this variance or this change from the originally approved plan. It's not really a variance because it's planned development, but just this change to allow the houses to sit on the topography the way it exists. So if that sounded like word salad, I'm happy to let Mr. Ward talk about it because he can do so better, but it essentially has to do with the topography of the land.
Basically, with a further setback, it's difficult to keep the houses at road level or higher. By bringing in 30 feet, we keep it consistent, we keep the houses kind of on the same elevation along the roadway.
Is that for all 69 lots?
Yes.
Right. The change in setbacks is for all 69?
Yes.
Right.
The applicant like to add anything else?
No, other than this did go back through technical review committee, and they did approve. Obviously, the changes, do change some of the road layouts as well, and fire was there and did make comments on the plan. And the other change is, I think this was told to you before, but there's actually now shown on your plan, the red line are actually the phases of the development. So just so you can anticipate, when we come back the next time with a subdivision plat, chances are there's not going to be more changes. It's going to mirror what's here, but you see the first phases. So I think my belief is staff can probably approve those subdivision plans now, as long as they're in accordance with this plan. So you may not see a change until after these first phases are actually developed, if that makes sense. So it is planned development. If the developer needs to make any alterations, they will come back. But we're showing you kind of where the phases are so you can anticipate kind of when those things will take place.
So Rob, I couldn't see,
No.
I couldn't, can you really just follow in, what were the changes to the cul-de-sacs?
Yeah, so I thought I included the plan that was attached from 25, but what I did is I included the plan without the red lines, the plan with the red lines.
Right.
But these the cul-de-sac lots originally looped onto the main road.
Who's that, the original?
That's the original. So the changes is that area where the cul-de-sacs are, there were loops before.
There were loops before, now cul-de-sac.
Correct.
So, Mr. Rump, why did we change that to not loop all the way around?
It never looped all the way around, so those were basically they were circles.
So this, if you can see my cursor, this looped back to the road here, and then this looped back to the road here.
I'm not positive that this is the exact plan that was approved,
But it shows the loop.
but it shows the loops that were approved.
So which one are you wanting?
The cul-de-sacs, which were before you, and it's not adding new lots, it's not increasing density, it's just changing the layout of that.
So it changes the lot configurations, and then it changes the setbacks from 50 to 30 feet.
But what was the purpose of not going all the way around? Were we never going to go all the way around?
Grading restraints.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Topography drainage.
Oh,
Yeah.
The extra connection on the road tied the topography down to excessive flow and runoff, so it made it very difficult to work it out.
well, I remember we talked about topography because of septic tanks and wondering where we could put those and.
Moving the houses forward also helps to give more room in the back for the septic systems.
So-
It helps in both scenarios.
So if you wanted to add a contingency on the approval of the amendment, you can use the topography as a deciding factor. This helps with dealing with the topography of the land.
So we're not changing the size of the lot at all, just moving the. Right.
The lots are staying comparable in size. I mean, the shapes are a little different because the cul-de-sac lots now, but
A few of them are a little bit, there's less road, so a few of them are a little bit larger.
EMS had no issues?
They did not. They were there.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor to the public. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak on this item on our agenda, for or against? Okay. We'll close the floor for public comment. Applicant, do you have any rebuttal?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll open it up to the commission for discussion and possible motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the amended preliminary development plan for the proposed multi-use development to be located at 2500 Mount Sterling Road, amending the street layout and lot configuration for the 69 single-family residential lots based on the fact that the overall development does not change the character of what was originally approved in September of 2025.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into public hearing F, reviewing a preliminary development plan for the 2.93 acre planned development zone property located at 300 Royal Oaks Drive, consisting of 9 single-family lots.
So the applicant received final approval for the overall preliminary plan development project describing the entire subdivision at the April 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Phase 1A of the development was presented and approved at the June 2025 meeting, and the developer is now wanting to move forward with Phase 4A of the development, which consists of 2.93 acres located at the end of Ashton Oak Way. Phase 4A includes 9 single-family lots. You can see the lot area, showing the lot area of each lot. I'm sorry, I apologize. So the R1B single-family zoning district is what these lots will be developed as. And so the R1B area and dimension standards are shown in the staff report, or the lot area, showing the minimum lot width and the minimum front yard and side yard. So the front yard would be a minimum of 35, the side yards would be a minimum of 12, and both sides would be 25. So if you have 12 on one side, you would have 13 on the other. And then the minimum rear would be 25 as well. Again, this is property zone plan development, and so I included the different uses that are permitted in the plan development zone, as well as a sample motion to approve or a sample motion to deny. And then I have the plan for this new phase of development, as well as the original plan that was approved a few years ago. And so you can see 4A is just a small portion here at the end of Ashton Oak. And if you have any questions or comments for staff, I'll be happy to help. I'm happy to help answer these.
What exactly are the changes?
So go to the slide that shows the whole Royal Oaks or whatever, the bigger one.
Right.
And then just outline where's that little tiny section in there, so about.
Right here.
For it.
And so I can have, I think if there have been any changes, I'm not sure if there were any changes to this development plan.
We can leave it if you like the same stormwater model that was submitted with the letter.
So it's same stormwater, same everything?
Yeah, the only thing, the pond shape changed a little bit, same volume, because we made room for the dam. You see the left side of the pond how it jogs in a little different right there. That's the only change. It's just in the stormwater pond. But there's essentially no change. It's still stormwater.
This is a continuation of what had already been, correct?
Correct.
In the subdivision.
Would the applicant like to come up and speak?
We said it's identical to the preliminary plan, just the added detail.
You do have representation if needed.
Yes.
Right. But I think if the planning commission has any questions, but at this time.
All right. This time we'll open the floor for public comments. Anyone that would like to speak on this item? Okay. We'll close the floor to the public and open it up to the commission for discussion and possible motion.
make a motion to approve the development plan for Phase 4A of the subdivision known as Deerlawn Development, Royal Oaks, for the 2.93 acres of the property addressed at 300 Royal Oak Drive, consisting of 9 single-family lots meeting the same dimension and area requirements as found in the R1B zoning district. Based on the fact that the proposal is in line with the preliminary plan approved at the April 2023 meeting, and the plan has been through technical review and is found to meet the requirements of the Winchester Clark County subdivision and development regulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into public hearing G, reviewing a final development plan for the 1.144 acre planned development PD zone property located at 2140 Rolling Hills Lane, consisting of an office garage, metal fabrication shop, and home.
All right. The next applicant submitted a development plan consisting of an office, garage, metal fabrication shop, and a home for the property located at 2140 Rolling Hills Lane. The property was part of the rezoning application that was reviewed and approved at the September 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. The property is zoned planned development. PD zoning can consist of a mixture of residential, commercial, and light industrial uses. Article 7.3 of the zoning ordinance is also included in this staff report for more review. And a sample motion to approve or deny is in the staff report if you choose to use it. And then this development plan, you can see the fabrication shop, and then the office, house, and garage, as well as the parking area.
Is that on the BCTC side?
Yeah, so you can see this Lexington Community College, Kentucky. That's the BCTC property. The only thing that I think would be needed in addition to the plan, just double check to make sure. I didn't think it was noted. Is just the landscaping. I see for some of the parking islands would be, or some of the just the landscaping calculation.
I've shown the landscaping on there. If you want more, we can discuss it, but whatever.
Right, and I think as long as the landscaping meets the requirement of the zoning ordinance, I don't think it, Bobby can correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as it meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance, we'll be fine.
Would the applicant like to come up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian Thomas on behalf of the applicant. This is a pretty simple development plan. Kraft, as you know, they have a facility on the other end of the Rolling Hills Lane. They are wanting to, I think this is a little bit smaller lot in its garage. A little bit smaller, they're wanting to move to this particular side. Mr. Sandberg comes in from Germany. That's the reason. I don't want there to be a misnomer that we're trying to build a house and put a big building out back. It's actually going to be an office, but it's going to have some living quarters in here. He travels from Germany, I believe. Is that correct? It stays, so he's an employee. He also comes over, and we wanted to have the flexibility of not having to have the office that operates it, and have the flexibility if he needs to stay there or live there. Pretty simple. We're just asking for this 1.44 acre section just to put the building up, put an office space, and have some living quarters in there. I think it's about as simple as it can get it involved.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak for or against this? Okay. We'll close the public comment and open it up to the commission for review, discussion, and possible motion.
Mr. Boland, I would like to ask how legally, I know that it's zoned professional development, but how can we have one residence, it's not a standalone, in the whole industrial park? Is there?
Well, ma'am, I don't, from what I'm hearing, it's not actually a residence in the true sense. It's an office with occasional accommodation. I don't see a problem with it. I mean, that zone is so wide open, you can it's subject to a lot of interpretation, but I think this is a pretty reasonable request.
Thank you.
So just as stated earlier, as long as it's meeting the interior and perimeter requirement for landscaping, they can add that after this meeting, and staff can make sure it meets the requirement.
I make a motion to approve the final development plan for the 1.144 acre property located at 2130 Rolling Grove Lane as described at the hearing, consisting of an office, garage, metal fabrication shop, and home, based on the fact that the development plan has been through technical review and is found to meet the requirements as found within the Winchester-Clark County subdivision development regulations.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. This time we'll move to questions and comments of the commission. Is there anyone that has anything they'd like to discuss? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
If you want to hit the stop button, stop
You all
recording.
did an outstanding job.
I mean, we had done a quarter of
Pictures over the.
I tell you, Mr.